Welcome everybody to the final episode of the F1 2012 Season Challenge Mode series. I am no expert, and we are finishing up here at the Yas Marina circuit in Abu Dhabi. And this is our second and final race with McLaren. We were able to beat Jenson Button with the Ferrari, coming off a 7th place result at Hockenheim, at which time I was actually leading, or not leading, but I was in 5th position until the last sector of the last lap, and then had an off into the gravel. And that cost me 2 positions at the end. You can see now Webber speeding through here, through turn 2, here in the qualifying session for Abu Dhabi. And now coming down into the first hairpin. Let's see if we can make up some ground. Just interested to see what kind of pace we'll have with the pole position leader coming out of this hairpin into the long straight. And you can see now the pole position leader is Hamilton, my teammate. And you may or may not have noticed that in these qualifying sessions, the pace leader can change. So when they go by you, they might be one driver, and by the time you catch up with them, there's someone else because they're leading through that part of the sector. So it's pretty interesting to see that change. But you can see I don't do that well here and only manage 14th position. The pace of the AI on Professional has been pretty swift. I haven't had a lot of great qualifying results so far here in Season Challenge Mode, but I seem to make up for it okay on race day. And here we are lining up for the final time on the grid for the season, and our team objective is to finish 10th. And so only have to make up 4 positions, feeling pretty confident that I can at least get that much, but would love to steal a top 5 spot if I can. So we'll have to wait and see how things go as we start off here behind Hulkenberg in the Force India. And riding up to our right is Paul di Resta in the Force India, and you can see not a great start coming down here into turn 1 and hoping to make up some ground here and slicing through on turn 1 and trying to stay on the inside, now competing with Maldonado. Coming up through this corner, you normally want to be in 4th gear, able to swoop in behind Kobayashi and the Sauber, and now contact with the Sauber, but no real harm. You can see that Kobayashi started to sway just a bit, and now getting pushed very hard by the Lotus. Going to try and get around the Sauber here at the chicane, and able to do so relatively cleanly. No contact that I could see. And now the train of cars ahead, very, very slow around the hairpin there, and it would have been nice to get around the Ferrari, but let's see what we can do here on the straight. Remember, we are in the McLaren now, and that should mean that pace is something we can count on. As you can see, giving Massa a go on the inside here, and we get around him easily. And now going to try and get around Schumacher at the braking point. And there's Raikkonen, and barely avoid contact with the Lotus, but I do push him off track. No penalty for that. But that was an extremely aggressive move. I didn't mean to actually do that. I was looking for a gap between Schumacher and Raikkonen and basically ran out of circuit. And I should just get out of the way now and tell you that I have a lot of problems with that corner and this one too. And so I'm going to expect to have a lot of problems with pace through here and have to hope that I can make it up for in other parts of the circuit. The strange part of that is that I have no problems with the second parts of the corner. In other words, have no problem with the second turns in the corners, but it's that very first hard brake entry that I seem to struggle with. I don't know if it's just getting my braking point wrong, but I can never seem to get my angle right coming into them, and routinely have problems and go off on the side of the track. So now you can see that Schumacher very, very keen to get by me here. And let's see if the Mercedes is going to try and make a move here on the main straight, coming around to the end of lap 1, almost taking out the cone. You can see Schumacher was having a look on the inside for just a moment, but now falls back. Now coming down into turn 1, typically want to take this in 3rd gear, and usually don't have any problems with it, but sometimes I end up going a little bit wide and sweeping up around here in 4th gear, and then wanting to hug the curb here along the right hand side because this left hand curb comes up very, very quickly if you go wide there. And surprisingly getting a purple sector time through sector 1, heading through the chicane, and you can see Schumacher keen to get around. Going to go ahead and drop it into 1st gear, coming around the hairpin, trying to maintain inside position on the Mercedes and accelerating out onto the back straight and using up some of our curves here. And only lap 2, so no DRS until the start of lap 3, but unless I gain some serious ground on the Sauber, DRS is not going to be in my future, unless of course I'm overtaken at some point. But have noticed that with Yas Marina, typically have had pretty good success in the past. I'm not sure if it's so much my driving, which like I mentioned, have problems with corners, a couple of corners here, or if it's just typically slow AI, but there will really be no review on that until I'm able to race it in the career mode, because we need to see how things look with pit stops and things of that nature. As you can see, I'm very, very ginger going through that chicane and somehow hitting another purple sector time. And very surprised by that because my pace hasn't been that great, but again, because we are on the McLaren, maybe what seems to me like are really bad angles, I'm still making up for in the fact that I'm, well, in a McLaren. And you can see going a little wide there again, and had the same problem on lap 1, but also like in lap 1, not losing the position to Schumacher, but this is exactly where the AI was giving me trouble before. And like at the end of lap 1, our mirrors are filled up with Schumi, so see what we can do to stay ahead of him, coming around here just before the start-finish line. And on lap 1, we were able to expand the gap just a little bit coming out of that corner, and you can see that's still true here. And just need to focus on not making any key mistakes at the corners that I have problems with, and hopefully able to at least keep this P4 position. But I have noticed that in season challenge mode on lap 3 is usually when gaps start to expand. You can see now, with the exception of Schumacher, and I'm not sure who's behind him, but the field is starting to fall away a bit as we're able to come around the hairpin onto the long back straight. And again, those gaps expanding now. And that's the one thing I've noticed about Yas Marina, at least in the previous versions of the F1 series. And that is that Yas Marina, typically after a handful of laps, you can almost hit cruise control, and are sort of afforded a luxury that is not often on professional, and that is having some kind of a gap to work with. As you can see, still not managing that corner right, and now extending down into the second corner that gives me a hard time, and that's definitely where the AI can make up some ground on me. But of course, I'm probably going to have to wait until career mode before I can get a true sense of how fast the AI is here. It's very hard to tell when you're doing these 5-lap races and you're not contending with, you know, tire wear and fuel wear and things like that. The other thing that makes Yas Marina unique is the fact that it's a day-night race. There's usually a sundown sequence that takes place in real life during the race. And unfortunately, last year, Codemasters did not include the sundown sequence in the 20% races, which I thought was pretty surprising and disappointing. It seems like it would have been relatively easy to have some scaling of the time lapse, even if you did a shorter race, but I believe that you had to race on 50% or 75 or 100, something like that, in order to see the sundown sequence. So again, that was a bit of a letdown. That's one of the cooler features about this circuit in real life, is the changing of the time. So hopefully that'll be updated in this release. I won't hold my breath. It seems like it could be one of those types of updates that just sort of sits on the shelf, but I'll be a little optimistic and hope that it's here. But we'll have to wait and see as soon as I get knee-deep in career mode, very knee-deep, because I do believe it's the last race on the calendar. In fact, now that I think about it, chances are strong that I'll just test that out in quick race, and so I will get back to you when I do find out. So now here we are in lap 4, and past the sector 1 mark into sector 2, coming down the main straight, and you can see now that Schumacher is still trailing back in P5, and as mentioned on the last go-around, basically having no problem creating gaps with the AI as the race goes on. And I'm sure that being in a McLaren does not hurt my cause. And actually, now that I think about it, usually your car is pretty upgraded by the time you get to Yas Marina, so maybe that has a lot to do with the AI. And so now Schumacher pushing very hard here, and missed my braking point and understeer off track, and able to get back onto the circuit and stay ahead of Michael. But that was exactly the type of mistake that Schumacher was hoping for, but he's not able to exploit. But at the same time, he's able to close the gap. So now with just over a lap to go, we have to be very, very on our toes. And you can see Michael getting very aggressive now, and I'm going to have to be very cautious coming around these corners and making sure that I don't go wide on my apex, because that's the type of gap that he will take advantage of. And you can see now coming around at the end of lap 4, this could actually be a lot closer than I was anticipating. And I started to go wide there, and Schumacher definitely had a look for just a second. There was a window there, but able to slow down and pinch off where he'd be coming through, and he falls back and keep getting a lot of curb on that turn 1. I, of course, had gloated about how I usually didn't have problems with it, and I've gone a little wide on it more than once here today, but that's okay. Just trying to keep it together for the last lap here of the race, and of course the final race of the season, and having a little bit of time here to reflect on what kind of a year it's been. Actually had a lot of fun with this series, and quite frankly really have enjoyed the season challenge mode. I think it's a big update to the Grand Prix mode, which I know some people played with and enjoyed quite a bit, but I've invested far more time into this mode than I ever did in any of the GP modes in F1 2010 or 11. And honestly, you can burn through a season in, I don't know, under 3 hours or so. This is probably about 10 minutes a race, not including qualifying. So maybe you've got 15 minutes per, something like that. But you can get through, you know, quite a bit of content in a few hours. And in career mode, of course, you know, with the 25% race length and finally getting a corner cutting warning there, with the 25% race length and practice times and qualifying, especially if you're doing a long weekend, very, very time consuming, which is fine. You know, I enjoy it, and I enjoy dropping the hours into it, but it's also pretty hard on people if they're just kind of looking to just sort of jump in and have some fun. If I had one wish list, though, I would say that there are a few things that I would change about this mode. First of all, I would make weather dynamic and allow that to basically be dynamic just like it would be in career mode. And I would also allow the calendar to be either customizable or randomized and not be a static calendar. As you can see, we were able to stay ahead of Schumacher and finish here in P5. But just to finish up my thought, you know, if Codemasters could come up with that in an update or at least future consideration, I think it would make this mode even stronger. And honestly, it would also be nice to be able to change the race length and have tire wear and things like that, just sort of like career mode, but just shorter. So now having a quick look at the race results, and you can see that we finished right behind our teammate Lewis Hamilton. And taking a look at the season driver standings to see where I finished, you can see that I finished 6th on the year. Not too bad from starting off with Caterham. So I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys with some race highlights here. Want to thank you all for following me through this series. I've had a lot of fun doing it. And I hope to see a lot of you for the start of my career mode series, which I'll be kicking off next week at Melbourne. And that's when we'll really see the guts of this game in terms of the pit stops and tire wear and things of that nature, all the race strategy that can come into play, which we're sort of deprived here in season challenge mode, but at least getting a sense for the cars. And if you want to kill time until then, feel free to check out my channel. I've got a number of playlists with commentary, and a lot of which are listed in the description of this video. And that includes an entire F1 2011 career mode series, I Am No Expert, as well as a lot of Forza 4 with commentary. So get this nice little video sequence at the end of season challenge mode. I'm going to leave you guys to watch this. I'm going to play it in its entirety. So thanks again for watching, everybody, and I'll hope to see you soon.
Soul,